How did a once introverted programmer go from coding in a cubicle to leading an iconic American brand? Well, that's exactly what Omaha Steaks CEO Nate Rempe did. And along with CEO Forum Group founder Robert Reiss, they're your inside source for magical hacks that will transform the way you command a room, command your career, and maybe even command a company. Get ready. This is Brain of Command.
Welcome to Brain of Command. Today's topic is a really interesting one. It's the right way to brag. Now, when you say those words, it's sort of misunderstood. It sounds terrible. Oh, there's no right way. It's an awful way. But actually, as you are going to learn over this next 20 minutes, you are going to find out that there is a right way and there's a wrong way. And if you do it the wrong way, that's where bragging gets a terrible name from. If you do it the right way, that can elevate your career. Nate?
When I came up with that title, I was going for shock factor. You think about that word, it's like, oh man, it's not a good word. So you can think about it really more like self-promotion. And I think self-promotion is important. I mean, if you don't tell people the good thing that you're doing, then you can't expect them to know. So over the course of my career, I figured out ways to put those things out there without it coming off overly braggish. And we'll cover some of them today. They're really quite interesting.
And so for our guest, we are going to really have an example of it. It is Sharon John, who is the CEO of Build-A-Bear.
Hello, everyone.
And Build-A-Bear, as we all know, it is a beloved company, but it's not just that. Over the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2025, the stock has appreciated over 2,000%. Now, just for perspective, that's more probably than Amazon, Apple, NVIDIA, which it's almost double of, all of them, Google, all of them combined. It is one of the best performing stocks, and it is done at a brilliance, because I've known Sharon for many, many years. She's written a tremendous book called Stories and Heart. So you're going to hear firsthand right now the right way to brag. The right way, because Sharon has outperformed almost every stock with Build-A-Bear. Tell the story of how Build-A-Bear has become so successful.
First of all, thank you so much, Robert. We have known each other a long time. You've been a part of this journey as much as anyone, so I appreciate that kind introduction. Build-A-Bear has always been a fabulous brand. And when I was asked to join the company 13 years ago, it wasn't because the brand needed help. It was because the business needed help. And the company had been in 8 years of contraction and had lost $50 million, and 20% of its stores were unprofitable. So we really did need to change the fundamentals and recognize that there was a broken business model, but that doesn't mean that the Build-A-Bear brand didn't still resonate with consumers. And the question was, how do we correct the business model, return to profitability, and find a way forward that could create profitable growth for the future? Because we're a publicly traded company, as you're noting, and you cannot operate that way for long without, impending doom, if you will. So that was the whole journey, was really about how to get the team to come along with me. And of course, having a background in turnarounds, I had a really, I think, clear vision of what needed to happen to return to profitability, whether that's cost cutting or rationalization of the store footprint. A lot of classic box checking approaches to do that, but that really wasn't what was going to get the team to move forward. What we really had to do was find a mission statement that exhilarated the team. And that's really when it started to work for us, of understanding that the brand had become bigger than the company, that the workshop's a place, but Build-A-Bear's a feeling. So
Right.
We got on a mission of figuring out how to monetize this extraordinary equity by flipping the business model on its side. Of it's not really like a mall-based retailer for kids that happened to build a brand. It's a brand where vertical retail becomes one of its number one revenue stream. If you can make that profitable, you can then create additional revenue streams that monetize that equity. And the reason that mattered was because without the bigger vision, the team was not just about it returning to profitability. That idea had to just be a means to an end, a means to a bigger idea, a means to a bigger Build-A-Bear, because they loved the brand and the culture so much. It really wasn't a financial question to get the company to move. And that was the unlock that has now allowed us to be very consistent and delivering on quarter. For 5 years now, we're expecting our fiscal to be another record-breaking year. This will be our 5th consecutive year, quarter to quarter, improvements. A focus on fiscal responsibility. We have a very clean balance sheet, and telling that story to the investment community ultimately creates this kind of value. But I think somewhere buried in there is that even though there was a lot of what we did that was smart, it was the heart that ultimately unlocked the power for the team to move forward.
I think, for our listeners, there's the connection here that may not be immediately evident in this idea of turnarounds, which are very difficult from a leadership perspective, because you have to create the belief that it's doable, that is possible. And that's where experience and credentials come into play. And so I'm interested how you expressed your experience to your team to create that confidence, which is in effect, Sharon, bragging about your experience in turnarounds, creating the trust and the belief that you could lead the team to turning around Build-A-Bear Workshop. Can you share a little bit with our listeners about how you created the confidence in your team by reflecting on, in essence, the right way to brag about your experience in turnarounds?
Yeah, so there was a very pivotal moment where I needed to get up in front of the entire organization and share this turnaround plan. There was a couple of different aspects to that. One was, of course, the cost-cutting piece, but is also the visionary piece, to your point. You got to get teams to believe. We actually gave it a mantra called bear leave. You have to bear leave. And when I was thinking about doing this presentation, I was going to do it in a linear way, like here's our cost-cutting plan, and then we're going to do this. I actually flipped it the other way and built out the vision of what Build-A-Bear could be based on everything they had done up for the first decade of its existence. They created this extraordinary brand. We just had to fix the business piece. That's
right.
Easy, right? That's easy. Thank you for creating this extraordinary brand that we now get to make sure has a future together.
Yeah, the hard part was done.
Right. And
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the way
Yeah.
I positioned it. Like, I'd much rather go into a place with a powerful brand and a broken business than a working business and a broken brand.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, let's do that. And when I didn't get, at first the response wasn't all that positive, okay, yay. And I had to say to the team, in kind of a moment of frustration, okay, well, is the world a better place with or without Build-A-Bear? You tell me. And finally, I got a bunch of whiffs, like we got some positive feedback. And I said, well, then it has to be worth changing. And here's the thing, and this is the direct answer to your question. I said, and listen, there's a lot of different ways for us to return to profitability, but that we're going to have to do that. Again, we're a public traded company. This is not an option.
Yeah.
But I'm presenting you with a way that I know works because I've done it before.
Right. Yeah.
We are about to take a commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you a personal story about bragging, but then Sharon has this fantastic book called Stories and Heart. And in there, it's really like a roadmap for someone young to plan out their whole career. And it really tells how you brag in the right way. And I want to throw one more thing at that. This is targeted even more for women where there's a greater challenge. So we're going to talk about all of that back in a few. We're get back to the show in just a minute. First, though, want to talk with you about your dinner plans. When you're a busy executive, dinner can be an afterthought. You want to know my secret to everyday perfection? Omaha Steaks. Whether you're spending time with your family or entertaining guests, Omaha Steaks makes it easy with quality and convenience you just won't find anywhere else. And every order is backed by a 100% guarantee. No planning, no prep, just handcraft, one-of-a-kind perfection that's ready when you are and shipped seriously fast to your door. That's why Omaha Steaks has been trusted by professional chefs, families across America, and executives like me for more than a century. Don't wait. Visit omahasteaks.com and discover a smarter way to shop. Plus, get $35 off with code CEO. You can remember that, CEO, at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Welcome back. You are listening to Sharon John, the CEO of Build-A-Bear, and Nate, my partner in crime, who is the CEO of the famous Omaha Steaks. And we're talking about the concept of the right way to brag. So now I'm going to share a personal story. Everyone knows the CEO show now, but when I started, I had one little radio station and not really many CEOs, and I had to cold call and reach out. How do I get people? So what I did, Nate, this is years before I knew you, I used your principle of the right way to brag, which is I had to just get the facts, the real right facts in front of people. So I cold called and I got the CEO of the Ritz-Carlton and then the CEO of Estee Lauder and the founder of JetBlue and the CEO of Deloitte. So I through cold calling, I got those as early guests. I would make up sheets and I would send people saying, I want to interview you, and here are the people. Because they'd never heard of the CEO show at the time in 2007. But once they saw the people, they would say, oh, yeah, I actually know them. That sounds good. So in a way, that little technique, and I don't know if it's a technique, but it was a way of sharing the truth. And that's how I view part of the right way to brag. And without that, we wouldn't have any CEO show listening to.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt that was a method. I mean, there's just the facts and there's name dropping. I mean, again, this sort of sounds, you say name dropping, it sounds like a negative thing, but absolutely, you were creating credibility. I mean, when you were talking to your potential interviewees, you needed to establish yourself. I mean, you weren't yet established and as large and experienced as you are now. So bringing forward some of those known names creates that trust component. And for our listeners, humility is a good thing until it holds you back. You have got to put yourself and your achievements out there. People have got to see them, and you need ways to do that don't make you seem braggish, that don't make your team invisible. And so what we're really wanting to touch on today is those folks that are trying to come up in their career, they're doing great things in their job. They're making advancements happen for their companies. They're creating value, but they're the silent killers in the background, right? They're doing great things, but they're unknown. And this hack attempts to give them actionable ways to bring their success forward. For example, I've got 8 of them. One of them is called the impressive email trail. Now, the thing about email trails specifically is that when you receive an email trail, you often feel like it wasn't really addressed to you. So it's kind of fun to go through the email trail and see what it's talking about. And it's a great way to take a win and to share it without looking conceited, especially if you say things like, this is a good example of my team really tackling a hard problem, forwarding that to some leadership, not saying, hey, look what I did, but indirectly using the power of we, taking an email trail that gives the facts, Jack, right? Here's what we grew. Here's how the cost cutting we did, and sharing that with leadership in a way that, brings the team into the conversation is just one example of a tactic that can be actively used to share wins in the business workspace without looking like you're bragging.
I want to jump on this and ask a question to Sharon, because really what you're saying, Nate, we're saying it's a tactic, but really what it is truth. So many times we're too humble and we don't want to share what the truth is. That's all that email trail is doing. It's sharing the truth. And like Sharon said in part A, you're giving the credit to others. So I want to ask you, Sharon, you have a lot of insights on how to tell a story. And I want you to weave this all in from your Stories and Heart book on how you tell the story. But with women, as you and I have spoken about, there's so much humility, they're afraid to take the credit. So tell the story of that, how you went from losing money to growing 2,000% in stock. So tell the story of that, as well as how do you get the women involved?
No pressure.
So there's a lot of stuff. But
That'll take us way too long. That's too, but it because it's so multidimensional, and it takes, such a good team to make that happen with the sort of consistency that we've been able to do it. But I am going to riff on this idea of honesty. I think that that's a really good one. I think that kind of helps people think through this sort of like this quagmire of what's bragging and what's not, and how do I do it the right way. And I think by calling it just being honest, that also helps the people who might lean toward that I'm full of humility or whatever it is. But the truth is, people are seeking out a certain level of earned confidence in leaders. They want you to be confident. You have to be confident. It is an earmark of being able to do the job.
Yeah. What I want is the entire American population and even worldwide to listen to this podcast right now, because it's basically, if you were listening to the last 10 minutes, you have gotten an inside preview of essentially what is holding back every CEO in America's great talent that they have no ideas in their company. I want people to share their wins. I want them to be self-aware of their level of humility so they can move it aside temporarily and shine the spotlight every now and then. It's going to feel uncomfortable the first time you do it. It's going to feel like you're bragging. That's why we're telling you the right way to go about it and giving you some tips. And so finding great talent in your organization is one of the best things CEOs can do. Talent assessment, talent identification. I've studied it for years. I will be a forever student, because if I can pick that diamond in the rough, put them in a position where they can make an impact that matters for the business, then the entire company wins. The individual wins. Me as a CEO, I exhibit finding talent in my own organization and elevating it. It's just good all the way around the barn. And so I think, as a CEO, those are the moments that I strive for, that keep me getting up in the morning, keep me driving in, is that I can make somebody recognize their potential and I can help them make an impact. But they have to tell me what they're capable of.
And there you have it. There is a right way to brag. We just look at the word brag the wrong way. What it really is about truth.
Amen.
See you all next time.
Bragging poorly can damage your personal brand, but indirect strategies and sharing credit with your team are powerful ways to bring attention to your wins while also winning the hearts and minds of everyone involved. For more on today's hack, download the free Brain of Command companion guide at omahasteaks.com/podcast. Join us next time to learn why a fast CPU isn't just for your computer. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your colleagues that you're hacking your career with Brain of Command.